guys, and welcome back to my channel and this new series that I call Journey to Med, where I'm trying my best and my very hardest to help prospective medical applicants achieve their dreams and their goals by getting into medical school. So today's video topic is going to be about interviews, how to prepare for interviews, when to start preparing for interviews, and as well the different resources that I used last year to prepare for interviews. Because right now we are in interview season. We have interview season for medical school applicants has started, and it's really exciting because honestly last year interviews were my favorite part of the whole application process. And I hope that with this video and possible future videos, you're going to be able to enjoy interviews as well. Because if you are well prepared and you have the correct mindset, it's the perfect match. You'll honestly be able to enjoy interviews as much as I did, hopefully. Yes, they're stressful, but they're still enjoyable. So if this video interests you, please continue watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share this video with other people that could benefit from it as well. And without further ado, let's start the video. Okay, so the first part of this video is going to be about when to start preparing for the interviews. I remember that last year I was searching on the internet everywhere. When should I start preparing for my interviews? Is this too early? Is this too late? And for me, the quickest answer now would be ASAP, as soon as possible. And in the as soon as possible, I really want you to include the fact that after the 15th of October, you should take a rest. You've done so much by that point. You've done personal statements, you've done the UCAT, the BMAT, the shadowing, the volunteering. You are tired. At least I was very tired. So you need to take a break. But after that break, however long it is, however long you need, start the interview process. Start preparing for the interviews, even before you have any interview offers. The earlier you start, the more questions you can see, the more comfortable you can get with the interview process and speaking out loud and speaking to people. And the better the outcomes will be the earlier you start, because it just takes a lot of stress down. And you just get used to it. The more you practice something, the better you become at it. So my answer would be as soon as possible, but definitely do take a break after the 15th of October. Okay, so for the second part of this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to prepare for the interviews. What are the techniques you should be using? What are the different tips that I have for you guys? And I honestly really believe that all of the tips that I'm going to be sharing with you guys is what really helped me succeed in my interviews last year. I really followed exactly what I'm going to be telling to you, and so I hope that can really help you. So the first thing that I wanted to say is that the way I did my preparation last year was that I separated my prep into two different parts. I had part one, which was the prep that I did before having an interview. And I really want to emphasize the word before, because you should really start your interview prep before you even get any medical school interviews. This will allow you to boost your confidence, really understand how interviews work, see a lot of different questions that are varied, so you can have a better scope of the subject, and just overall allow you to be more comfortable, because some schools will only give you a 2-week notice for your interviews, and in my opinion 2 weeks is really not enough to prepare. And then part two was basically when I had interview offers and how did I tweak and change a little bit my technique so after I got my interview offers. So let's first talk about the first part, which was before I got any interview offers. So what I did at this point was that I really scouted the internet, looked through the internet, and Googled something like medical school interview questions. And I found a few different websites that I'm going to link down below. I think I'm going to link 3 of them that I think I used last year. And what I did was that I copy-pasted all of the questions that they had, all of the sample questions that they had on each website. And I copy-pasted them into a Google document on Google Drive. That was step 1. Then step 2 was me actually looking through all of these questions and organizing them in coherent chunks. So I had a chunk about my motivation to study medicine. I had a chunk about the university and the MBCHB program. And I had a chunk about, let's say, my background and my personal life. Things like that. And then, so that was step 2. And then step 3 was going through each of these individual parts or chunks of questions. So let's say I was going through the university and the MBCHB chunk, and I would look through all of the questions and figure out which ones were the most relevant questions and which ones were, in my eyes, the most important and critical questions. And I put these questions at the top of the chunk of questions, so I made sure that I would answer them first because they were, in my eyes, the most important ones to answer. And then only after that I have done these 3 first steps. Then I move on to step 4, which was me actually starting to answer these questions. And the way that I did this was that I used bullet points to answer the question. And each bullet point was an element of response to the question. And then under each initial bullet point, I had sub bullet points that would actually flesh out why that initial bullet point is relevant and why I think that it's important to talk about this. So let's say, I'm going to give you an example. The question was, you're going to be spending 5 years in this city. What do you enjoy about this city? Let's say. And I would say, I would have maybe 3 to 5 bullet points of things that I enjoy. Maybe I would say, I enjoy the fact that there are a lot of parks around. And then that would be the first bullet point. And then the sub bullet points of this would be, I enjoy parks because I really enjoy walking and clearing my head, and it's a way for me to really unwind and prevent myself from stressing. And so I think that it's important for me to be in a city that has access to this because it will really help my well-being. So that would be what I would put maybe under as sub bullet points of this initial bullet point. And then I would move on and do the same thing. And I would use this technique for every single question. If it was an ethical question, a moral dilemma, my personal life, every single question, I use the same technique. And I think that that's a really core idea with this whole technique, is that you have to use the same overarching technique for every single one of the questions you answer. Bullet points, and then each bullet point you flesh it out and explain why it is relevant to answer, and to use this bullet point as an answer for this question. So I hope this makes sense. So that was what I did before actually getting interview offers. The first step that I did after I got interview offers was that I went through the website, or sometimes they give you links, and I went through these links to really understand how the interview process happens in this school. So I looked through all of the different areas that they could ask me questions on, because if I knew the different areas that they could ask me questions on, I could then tailor these areas to my already existing document and focus on these different chunks of questions, because I knew that these were the ones that could potentially pop out on my interview. And then another thing that I looked at was the time that I had in each MMI station, of course if it's an MMI interview. And because it's really important to know how much time you have, and to then practice later on in your prep talking for that amount of time, because talking for 5 minutes is definitely not the same as talking for 7 or 8 minutes. So that's what I did at this point. And then the last thing that I did in this actual second part of the interview preparation for me was that I started to actually talk and vocalize the ideas that I had put on paper. So I went through maybe a question, and I would just be in front of the mirror and speaking to myself and analyzing, first of all, how it felt to speak for 7 minutes, looked if the points that I had could actually allow me to cover 7 minutes of, let's say, of speech, or if it was too long or too short. It also allowed me to see the different types of maybe mannerisms that I have when I speak, see if I was able to maintain eye contact or things like that. And another thing that I did that really helped me was that I was part of the academy that I talked to you guys about in my UCAT and BMAT videos. And there they would also ask me random questions that I did not prepare for. And this, I think, is where the bullet point technique that I used really shines. And you can really see the power of it. Because if you do over and over and over again, over a lot of different weeks, the same technique to answer each question, you have one overarching bullet point with a sub bullet points that actually explain that overarching bullet point and justifies why it's a good answer and it deserves to be an answer to that question. If you always do the same technique, then when you have to think on your feet, it becomes automatic to search for 3 to 5 overarching bullet points and then figuring out why they're relevant, and then you can just speak them. So in that minute that you have to think about, it's a minute of really you organizing your thought. Okay, I'm going to talk about this, 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 and this, and under each bullet point I'm going to be speaking of these 2 points. And during my interviews, I really felt that it was a really good skill that I had developed, because during my minutes or 2 minutes of, break time between stations, I was really in my head like, okay, for this question, I'm going to be talking about these 3 bullet points, and for each bullet point, these are the 2 things I want to address. And that really helped me structure my answers and not make myself lose my train of thought. So this is one of the really big positives about this technique. After, one of the drawbacks is that you do have to start relatively early in the interview process to build this skill and for it to become automatic. But I really, really, really do believe that it is very, very worthwhile. It's a very good technique that will really help you shine at interviews. And then for the third and final part of this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the different resources that you can use to prepare for the interviews. So the first thing is maybe very, very basic, but it's YouTube and Google. I use both of these very, very often to figure out answers for moral dilemmas, ethical scenarios, how do you actually structure these answers, what do you need to take into consideration, etc., etc. And actually for this, stay tuned, because I think I'm going to be doing a video in the future about ethical scenarios and how to approach them. So that was the first resources that I used. And then another thing that I used was the GMC guides. They have a lot of different guides about so many different things like capacity, confidentiality, consent, how do you take care of children in care, the good medical practice, guidance about social media, guidance for medical students, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And so I would read these guides to have a very clear idea of what doctors should be doing, what doctors should not be doing. And that really, really helped me actually to formulate my answers based on these guidance, because I knew that all of this, everything that was said in the guidance was accurate and was basically the rules that doctors have to follow in the UK. And so it is very important that you are very aware of these guides and that you are comfortable with reading them and that you have fully understood them, so you can answer questions confidently if they do relate to these sort of scenarios that involve capacity or consent or confidentiality for that matter. So I'll leave a link down below where you can find the guides from the GMC. They're all PDFs, so it should be really easy for you guys to access them. And then the last thing that I used was the website, the Medic portal, especially the blog section, because there they have like a whole section about NHS hot topics, which is basically what I used every single week. I would look through it and see what was kind of relevant in the news at the moment for the NHS, what was important to know about in this current scenario, because things change really quickly, especially now with COVID. There's going to be a lot of different things to look at. So look through this website and find all of the different articles. In the articles, they explain to you what's going on, why is it relevant, how you can use it in interviews, and really go through everything that you could need. So it's extremely, extremely helpful to do that. They also have sections about interviews and what you should know for interviews, things like that. So definitely browse through that website. It could be very useful. And a last thing that could also be good is to use any sort of new scientific news website. You can go through BBC News or other websites that you can find that have news about science, so you can keep in touch, especially in the weeks prior to your interview, with what are the different advances in science and in medical sciences, so you kind of are aware of what's going on. So I guess that these would be the major resources that I used last year that really helped me formulate my answers. So yeah, I think I'm done. I covered everything that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I hope that this video was helpful, that you were able to understand a bit more about maybe how to prepare for interviews if you were a bit lost. Find a few tips and tricks that you can add to your maybe already existing structure of preparation. And yeah, if you have any other questions, if you're a bit confused about a few different things, please comment down below, ask me questions down below, or send me a DM on my Instagram at differently_moi. And yeah, if you enjoyed it, please, please, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share this video with other people and other medical applicants that could benefit from it as well. And yeah, until next time, thank you for watching.